This is a full room. And I still have my voice, so it's, just the very end where you see me tomorrow, that's probably not going to be true. And I have broken glasses, so it's going well. So I'm going to be a little bit tilted, which is very odd for doing a seminar about personal branding, and I look like this on the seminar. So only take pictures with the glasses off, please. So really we are so excited to have all of you here. This is something we've been talking about for a while, and it's something in our own way. We all kind of came together in different ways about I brought up the topic, and then Sandrae and I started talking, and then Jillian started talking about it, and then I met Michael, and he had done a seminar similar about building your own career paths. Oh, thank God, martinis. They're coming up. Oh, it's just room, sorry. Cheers, all right, yours is coming. If you've ever gotten up on stage and speaking, it can be quite nerve-wracking. So, and part of my personal brand is that I'm supposed to be a really good speaker. So, and I have a secret. I usually take a shot before I get on stage all the time, no matter where I am in the world. So, cheers to that. Oh, sorry. Woo. All right, I'm back. All right. So again, thank you all for coming. So we're going to talk a lot about, first I want to introduce my amazing panel. So, sorry, I realized I have a clicker. There you go. So first up is Jillian Vose. As many of you already know Jillian, she is a partner in the Dead Rabbit, as well as the head beverage director. And the bar manager, but she does so much more. I feel like this woman never starts working. Most of her calls are at 1 o'clock in the morning, or 12:30 at night. She's like, no, I can talk. I'm like, it's 11:30. I go to bed. But, so she's gonna be here. She's gonna be talking about her platform and the Dead Rabbit, and how and why they choose people to work at the Dead Rabbit, and how they use their employees to extend their own personal platform, and why they do that. And then we have Sandra Learns from the amazing Cocktail Lovers magazine. She's here. She's a co-founder with her husband, Gary Sharpen, who's back there on the right. They also brought some goodies. They brought some magazines, so if anybody wants some, he has a few. Only a couple, so get them while they're hot. And then next to on the end, we have Michael Vachon. He's the co-founder of Beverage Drinks. It really is a leading platform for craft spirits in the UK. So whenever you're in London, he's definitely a man to see, and what he's carrying in his portfolio is always pretty interesting and cool. So what is a brand, right? So has anybody ever taken marketing? Yeah, right? So you got there used to be only 4 Ps, now there's 5 Ps. We're not going to talk about that today, but because that would be another seminar about marketing. But let's just talk about what a brand is, right? So thinking about it, it's a name, people recognize. It's a design. It could just be a symbol. It could be any other feature that identifies you. And for everybody in this industry, the one thing I always admired is that everybody has a unique style, right? You have your unique style. You have your, kind of cool hair. You might have your tattoos. You might have your beard. You might have whatever your outfit is. But you should have something that people always recognize when they see you. They're like, yep. I get it. I get who that person is just by their unique style. And be uniquely you.
I was just going to say, I know everybody knows the Dead Rabbit and Cocktailers, but for those who aren't aware, the last one, there's a company called Apple.
Thank you, Michael. But I think it's true though. So whenever anybody sees the rabbit, the first thing they think of is one of the world's best bars in the world, right? And if you see Gary and Sandrae out and about, you know exactly who they are. They are their own brand, and they have a magazine that even builds them even further. And obviously we all know who Apple is, right? There's no mistaking when you see these symbols, you know exactly what they're about. So what is your own brand? So one of the things you look at is, you want to identify who you are, right? Who are you? Who you really are. So I always draw from my own personal background, and then how you want to be perceived. So how do you want the rest of the world? So you might be in your own head a mess, but how do you want the rest of the world to see? Nobody needs to know that. How do you want to be perceived in the world? So think about Starbucks. When you think about Starbucks, they have a very unique way of how they put themselves out there, right? They have a symbol, everybody recognizes it. But they're not just about that cup of coffee. When you walk into a Starbucks, it's always unique. It's always the same experience. So they're about customer service, They're about the atmosphere. They're about the type font. They're about how they describe their drinks. That's how they want to be perceived into the world, and that's their brand. So this is a funny, if you want to see, that's me on the left. That's me back in 1980s, right? So who you really are. So in my head, I'm a rock star, right? But I'm a person who's the youngest of 8 kids. I have worked in the beverage industry for over 25 years. I've worked on the marketing side, and I've worked on the drink side, being the mixologist for Diageo. I've worked on TV, but I've worked for the 2 largest drinks companies in the world. I also worked in beer. I worked for Diageo, and I worked for Anheuser-Busch. So how I want to be perceived is as a business professional. Now, when I first started out, my whole goal was to be like famous and important and get into the industry and get people to know me as a drinks professional, as an expert that they can come to. Now that I'm older and I'm more working on the business side, I want people to perceive me as a business professional, somebody who's an educator, somebody who can solve your problem if you have one. So your image can change. So you have to decide what that is in every stage of your life, what you want to put forward. So that's why you always see me, I'm always dressed. Like I'm always, very rare you see me in like shorts and a t-shirt. Because I want people always think of me as professional and like somebody that they can count on. That's my personal image. That's what I think is how I want to be perceived. But everybody has their own. So, and that's my brand. I'm Elayne Duff, I'm an entree consultant, I'm a problem solver, I'm an educator, and that's what I want to be known as. But everybody here, sorry, I'm going to go back. But I wanted to talk to everybody here, like what your image is and how you want people to perceive.
The image is something different, but what we see ourselves are as communicators, curators, and connectors. So that's what our brand is.
I guess this could go 2 different ways. So I would say personally, for me, I would like to be seen as a leader. I'm not always dressed, and I do wear, my t-shirt, and I dress in black, and I'm kind of dark and weird sometimes. But
my rock and roll outfit was last night. I was in my t-shirt, and
no,
shorts, and my
great.
sneakers. Like that's still part of me. So it's just the other side. People want to pay me to dress up.
But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a mixed bag when it comes to my appearance, but it is dress for the occasion, and always be an ambassador of where you're working and of yourself. Of course, there's times to let loose, and there's times not to. But I think I like everybody knows I like to go out and have fun and have a good time with the rest of us. But if you have to be up for a 10 o'clock seminar, you show up, and just like you guys are, you're responsible. So it's important to have that balance for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the persona of Maverick Drinks?
Yeah, so professionally, Maverick Drinks, I mean, we are a distributor in the UK. We buy products from other countries, we bring them to the UK, we sell them on to retailers, bars, etc. Functionally, that's what we do. It's very transactional. But we didn't want to be thought of as just a very transactional business. And we were fortunate to win a few awards, and so we started off by calling ourselves a distributor of craft spirits. And then that evolved into, well, after we won a few awards, we're the leading distributor of craft spirits. It's a perfectly defensible statement. It's also perfectly vague. We didn't say that we're the leading. We didn't describe how we measured that. But still, the leading distributor still put us into this box of a functional transactional business, where we're a business that we've always thought is rooted in purpose. So now we very consistently, and you'll see that on the next slide, we always say Maverick Drinks is leading the craft spirits movement. And we don't even say it in the UK anymore. Just Maverick Drinks is leading the craft spirits movement. And it's a really powerful statement that our team get behind. They come into work and they're excited that they are driving forward a whole movement, not just selling another bottle to one customer.
And you also said something to me yesterday. You said something. You're a person that you want to add value.
Yeah, I mean, I still think of myself as relatively new in the industry. I'm about 7 years working in drinks, and I think from day one, I always thought, if I'm going to take a place in this community, I need to add value. It's a zero-sum game. You either take away value or you add it. And so my kind of personal mantra, and I translate that into work as well, is how am I adding value to the brands we work with? How am I adding value to the people I meet? How am I adding value to this industry overall? And it's kind of constantly my North Star, what guides me.
And that's a big thing we talk about. It's like you have to have a goal. Like, what is your end goal and what do you want to get to? And that helps you kind of put out what your key message is and how you want to be perceived in the world is by having that goal. So it could be a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal. Like I had a 5-year goal, and then now I have a 10-year goal of like what I want to be perceived as. I also, one thing I forget about myself, I also like to be perceived as an entertainer. So I also do things on TV and web series shows. That's like my fun thing. That for me is like the thing. We want to see Elayne get loose, watch her on TV. So let's talk about also, so now that you have, you know, what you think your brand to be, the one that you got to remember, there's guidelines to always look back on. So whenever I'm kind of struggling, and I'm actually right now going through a thing where I'm rebranding myself and like what I want to be doing for the next 5 years, because I work for myself now. So I kind of look back, it's like, what is the things that I always look as guidelines? Am I being consistent? Is my brand story, my message compelling? And, you know, do people understand it? When they see me, do they understand who I am as a person? So these are like 3 things if you really want to look and create a strong brand, something to really look at. Are you being consistent? Are you compelling? And is your message clear? So this is a hard point to get to. Like sometimes and you might have to change it. Like I'm going through it right now. I'm like literally deciding like what is my clear message. We were talking about this yesterday and I was like, I really don't have one.
Yeah, I mean, consistency for me was I did a seminar like this a few months ago, and consistency was the biggest point for me. In our business, we use 2 social media hashtags, hashtag #DrinkCraft, we're a craft spirits distributor, and hashtag #ForwardDrinking. And it's very clear to our team, you use DrinkCraft if it's product-based, you use #ForwardDrinking if it's any kind of initiative or community-based movement that you want to talk about. We use them constantly, we drive them down people's throats because it is building that brand overall.
Yes.
And we had one of our sales guys actually one day was tweeting from a hotel lobby where he was working, and he said, on the road again today, hashtag #RepLife. And I immediately called him, and I mean, I'm a bit of a dick about this kind of stuff. I feel like you have to be so consistent. And I said, you know, we hired you as, everybody in our team, our sales managers, account managers, we call all of them partner managers. We want them to think that they are actually working in the interest of the people that they're selling to. And I said, are you a partner manager or are you a sales rep? You use the hashtag #RepLife, but actually we hired you because we think you're much more than just the typical sales rep dragging the vacuum cleaner behind him with a suit that doesn't fit.
Wow,
You get this connotation of what a rep might be like. And I said, I want you to think of yourself as more than that, you are adding value. And he very quickly realized the error of his ways. And it seemed like such a small detail, just one hashtag in one tweet. But it's a whole mindset that we're trying to get people behind.
That's something that when somebody says that to you, that you'll never forget, you'll have that mindset. Like it's not something that's like, oh, I just won't do it again and do it the next week. Like somebody telling me something like that would resonate very well.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he's forgotten that I'm an asshole.
But it's consistency for us in another way is, yes, like using the right social media hashtag, not just like making things up, because you never know where that melting pot's like where that's gonna go. But you know, we post at the same time every single day, Monday through Friday, and then we have it's a scheduled thing. And another way that we're consistent is we have a voice that stays the same, where we have a copywriter who takes, hey, we have this idea, make it sound like the Dead Rabbit. And that person will make whatever mumbo jumbo I say or Sean says or whatever it may be. Not that it's mumbo jumbo, but you know, just, hey, we have this idea, this is what we want, this is our vision, make it happen. And that's what basically Sean as a visionary and our copyright understanding our voice and our brand will do on a consistent basis.
And the way that we're consistent with our magazine is making sure that we always convey a lifestyle element to cocktails. So Gary, my partner here, has got a copy of our magazine that we can pass around, but it's just the way that we like to share the cocktail love, as we say, but making sure that we bring in certain elements that every day, things like fashion, culture, travel, all of the things that people do all the time, why should a drinks magazine just be about drinks? You want to encompass all of the elements of lifestyle into which we do.
And one of the easiest ways to be consistent is just show the fuck up. Just show up when you're supposed to show up, always. And don't be drunk, don't be hungover, don't do worry. If you just show up, I always tell them, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I said to her, everybody will think you're a great kid, even when you're being a jerk, if you're polite. And that's the thing I tell her, and I was like, you're polite if you're reliable. So just showing up is a really great way of being consistent, that people can rely on you. They know when they're gonna hire you, that you're gonna be the person who's there, you're on time, you get the job done. That alone will build you a personal brand in this industry, because a lot of people don't show up, or they, are hungover and they don't do the job right and they weren't prepared. So just in this industry alone, just showing up is going to build you a good brand. Yeah. So just on that note, one of the things, developing your personal brand is important to everyone, because it's going to drive your career. If you don't develop your own personal brand, somebody's going to do it for you. Somebody's going to define you and say, oh, this is what this person is. So you need to create your own, because it will help you get the next job. It will build your career. People are going to remember it and say, oh yeah, I remember it. Like that person, they know you exist, right? That's number one. Do they know you exist? If you don't put anything out there, nobody knows who you are. So building your personal brand is really going to help you, and you don't want anybody else defining it for you. So you need to be proactive in how you're controlling your career development, and how you're perceived in the marketplace, right? You need to have you will impact your ability to get the right jobs, as I said, because literally right now, as an entrepreneur, clients come to me because they knew where I was at Diageo, they knew I was AP and Bev, and they trust me. They're like, Elayne, we understand you're the kind of person. If you say this is the right fit for my brand, you're a trustworthy person, you'll make sure it is, or you'll tell me, no, I wouldn't bother, because I'm an honest person. I'm like, yeah, no, don't do this, it's not a right fit for you. So that's the kind of brand. You have to make sure you're out there in the world so everybody knows that you exist. So this is gonna affect your entire career from now until the rest of your life.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think if, on the first point, if you don't develop your personal brand, others will do it for you, or you'll become irrelevant.
Yes.
And that may be even worse. People just won't think of you, not think one way or the other, but it won't even be consideration. And I think having your personal brand really does kind of help elevate you to opportunities that you may not even have thought about. I mean, just showing up in Brooklyn to see you, and it just worked out that we're doing the seminar together.
That's
and
true.
it was purely by chance,
Yeah.
and by telling you about the brand that we've been creating.
Yes.
I think if you don't develop your personal brand, others will do it for you. I think I'm a good example. I don't know how many of you follow me on Instagram or whatever, but I'm not very good at it. And honestly,
She's really bad at social media.
No, I'm not. And I think that's actually part of my personal brand, to be honest. Kind of like the does that make sense? But Dead Rabbit does a lot for me in that sense, where they promote me as part of the brand, or the ambassador of the brand. So it's not that I'm not interactive with that aspect, I just feel that because I'm such a part of that being like on my own personal networks on top of it is like a lot. And I don't want to be overbearing, because there's people that post, and you're just like, oh.
It's true, if you overpost, people will stop following you. And we'll talk about that in a bit, about mistakes. All right, so tools to building your personal brand. Here's some things that you actually can utilize. So one of the major things is you need a platform, something you can build off of, something you can use as a tool. So it's how a brand defines itself. It communicates its core values and positions to a target audience. So there are quite a few platforms out there that you can either become a part of, or you can build your own. So these are some of the things right now that are happening within the industry. You can create a blog or a newsletter that you send out there, so you're sharing your information. It can be about something you're just personally passionate about. Sometimes it doesn't even have to do with the industry. It just can be like your personal thing that you really care about. And it's just like, that's your other interest besides bartending or, owning a brand. Podcasts, as we all know, podcast is definitely the big thing of the future. Everybody's having one, but You know, we're not going to talk about how to do a podcast. That's like a whole nother seminar. But about doing it right and realizing you have relevant information to share. And it's also about sharing. We're going to talk about later, but sharing your own knowledge is also about bringing other people into a podcast to share their knowledge. Websites, right? So having a good website, even if you're just a bartender and you just started bartending, have a page. Have some sort of page. Go on it, make it so when somebody looks you up, have something on LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn people, I got a job as a global manager at AB and Bev because I had a thing on LinkedIn. I was so underqualified. But I got the job and I figured it out and I actually did really well. But have a page, right?
I just wanted to say that we started our business as a blog, and it was just something that we did while we were doing our full-time jobs. We loved going to bars, so we just started writing about the best ones that we went to in London. Then it transpired that people wanted to read this blog, so we kept doing it. We built a social media platform from that, and then we launched the magazine. And then 6-7 years later, we actually won the Spirited Awards for the best cocktail and spirits publication. So it did pay off.
You know, another way out there, and we're going to explore a couple of these in depth about the cocktail magazine and also working at a popular bar and also working as a brand ambassador. Did you want to add something? I was going to say.
Okay.
No, I was going to say, so obviously writing a cocktail book. As Gaz Regan said to me once, he said, Elayne, you'll never make money from the book itself, but people will pay you more if you wrote a book. And it is really true. If you're an author, brand people love that shit. They do. Brand people manage brands, own brands. You're an author, they're like, oh yeah, you definitely deserve 5 times the amount the other person is because they don't have a cocktail book. It's a true statement. So winning cocktail competitions, I share this all the time. It's like I tell people the easiest way to get people to know you is to enter a cocktail competition. Because if you win that cocktail competition, they're paying for everything. Right? Once you get into the cocktail competition, then you're flown somewhere to compete in the cocktail competition, and suddenly they're doing all your PR, they're doing all your media, they're putting you out there in the world. Start small, do all the shitty ones to build yourself up, to build your way up to like a world class, which is like once you work there, Eric Lawrence is still, he won world class, I don't know what, 5 years ago? And 8 years ago, and he's still the face of world class. He's also really handsome, so that could help. Yeah, but, we're gonna get the drink you have is actually, I realize it's your drink, Jillian, which we're gonna talk about in a minute. But yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so just hold on to it so we can talk to it. And then, so working for a brand, obviously, and being a brand ambassador, and then working at a famous cocktail bar can be your personal platform. So that's what we're gonna explore a little bit in depth about working, first we're gonna start off working in a cocktail publication. So I would love to hear your platform, the platform of the cocktail lovers.
Well, we essentially, I guess our window is the magazine now. But as I said before, we actually started as a blog, so it was a hobby. We loved going to bars and talking to the people that were behind the bars. And we wanted to convey that passion. So we didn't know anyone in the drinks industry, but we made it our business to know everybody. Once we decided that we were going to make this our full-time career, we kind of quit our jobs, not knowing how we were going to make any money. But one thing I must say about having a brand, you have to have the passion and the belief and the conviction behind it, because that's, I think, what drove us and what gave us the passion to do it, because we believed in it. So the magazine is our window, but we do lots of other things beside that. We have events, we get called on by brands to make films, we do all kinds of stuff actually. And it's a great life, I must say. We travel the world talking about cocktails, judging competitions, and visiting bars. So, as I say, we're doing something right.
I also wanted to ask you about, so I asked Sandrae, I said, how do you pick somebody to be featured in your magazine? Like, what attracted you to this person to be, because everybody wants to be featured, right? The more press, if you're building your personal brand, press is really important to you. So how does somebody working in the press choose somebody to be featured?
Yeah, well, one of the key things as we put up there is personality. It doesn't mean you have to be all jazz hands. It's something that, again, that word that always comes up, which is passion. And so we're looking for that all the time. If we can see that you've got a great story to tell, you believe in that story, whether it's about your menu, whether it's about yourself, whether it's about the location or your bar, there's some great things that we just get drawn to people. So sometimes people will contact us with their stories and we'll follow those up, but usually we're kind of chasing them. So we'll come here, we're looking for stories, we'll go to seminars, we're looking for stories. But people like Alex and Simone, who we used on the cover of this particular issue, they have everything that we were looking for at that time. Everyone knew them for a start. They were changing directions. They were heading up a bar before called the Artesian in London, which had won World's Best Bar about 5 times in a row. Okay, sorry. It was okay. But there's the professionalism as well. There's got to be a story that we believe in, but we think that other people are going to believe in. The other thing is our magazine, it is aimed at trade, but actually it's more consumer facing as well. So we want to have somebody in the magazine that we feel that can represent the industry to all sorts of people. So it's really important. And plus we love charm. So there's something that we'd like to engage with people in. And Simone and Alex, they had all of those things. Plus a great story.
The most charming people in the world. Yes, exactly. So, Jillian, I love you talking about the Dead Rabbit. So this is literally like Jillian and I, like I said, we talk around midnight. So I was like, what is your platform? So this is literally me. This is my observation. And she looked at it. She's like, yep, that's it. So the fact that her platform, the Dead Rabbit platform, is so clear that a person who I've never written their platform, but I just know the bar was, and just talk a little bit about the platform, like why it's important to have those. That's what people perceive the bar as.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely pride ourselves on and are very transparent through social media, through even like how myself, Jack, Sean, and the rest of the staff, how we expose what we're doing as far as our education program. Our bar team, we're all ambassadors of that. So our platform is really, you're part of the Dead Rabbit. You own it. You're telling about.
Well, I thought the one thing that was always fascinating to me when the Dead Rabbit, when they first opened, I was always thinking, because Jack, when I met Jack and Sean, they said to me their whole goal, like when we were talking about having a goal, their goal was we're going to be the best bar in the world. That was literally their goal from the onset and when they opened their bar. And they did everything they possibly could to be the best bar in the world. So that's why I was just saying about rubbing in the 50 best bars, because when Sean didn't get the 50 best bar one year at Moment, he was not happy. But that was your goal and you achieved it. Yeah. And the second thing was, all the staff, most of them, there was some famous bartenders in there, but there was a lot of just bartenders from regular bars. And that you guys kind of brought in and be part of your image.
I mean, I think, I worked at Death & Co. for 4 or 5 years before coming on to Dead Rabbit, and nobody really knew who I was until I started working there. So, at least internationally. So it was, the platform there is putting them up on a pedestal, or putting, the guys giving you the platform to be known and to be educators, to be leaders in our industry, being on panels like this, or going to Tales and being relevant, staying active, continuing to push yourself to learn, to be better, and to share your knowledge with the world of what you're doing. And I think attention to detail and the graphic design. There's not many bars that put the effort into graphic designers and all that kind of stuff.
Now, because of what you did.
So I think the whole menu category, for instance, telling a story and having there be a meaning for everything that you do, that there's a why, that you can answer the whys. I think that's kind of our platform. So
that's pretty relevant. So and then by the way, now the cocktail's up. So this is
I was actually trying to look up on my Evernote what was in it, because I forget. I haven't bartended in 3 weeks. I'm sorry. This is actually a drink on our new menu called Darkland, which is actually a really crazy prequel to our former comic books. Also branding.
Now you have a very specific way of doing drinks. Like you never have garnishes. There's a very specific way, and that's part of your platform. Like when you go to different.
Yeah, I guess I've kind of always been this way. I'm very minimalistic when it comes to garnishes because I don't want stuff in my hands, stuff in my face. I don't want a peel in my mouth. Like I think everything that should be in the drink should already be in the drink, or if it's a garnish, it needs to be aromatic. So in this sense, the Prince of Darkness is a riff on a drink I did for the first Black Top menu called the Chapara, which is like a rum martini variation. So this is kind of a spiff on that. So I hope you enjoy. You can all read, I'm sure. So.
What is your, like, on the platform, like, the one thing when the Dead Rabbit was created, the platform was, like, if you went to the second floor, it was all about those historic drinks, but it's evolved since then.
Right, I mean, I think what's really cool is that, obviously Jack McGarry is one of the owners. He started the drinks program and, like, set a standard. He was very much involved with, he came from working with, like, Nick Strangeway and Milk and Honey and The Merchant, and they were looking at more historical types of cocktails and punches, and then like singular served punches. So the first book that they wrote was like a mini history book, which I really enjoyed. I came in, I'm like, oh, like that's really cool, but like I was all like more, not that I don't give a shit about history, but no, but I'm much more culinary driven. So I'm more like, I try a product, or I have an idea pop in my head, or I'm inspired by a dish or a dessert or something nostalgic, and I'm like, ding, how am I going to achieve that? So I think the morphing of Jack and I's style created a Dead Rabbit style, and there's a lot of people that would say like that we have, like, I can tell it's a Dead Rabbit drink, and that's again back to consistency, and that when we're doing R&D sessions and creating menus, that we're like, is this our standard? Is this a Dead Rabbit drink? What does that mean? Sometimes we don't know, but we know when we know.
And it is so consistent. If someone was sitting in the back of the room in a red shirt and black braces, I'd think they were working at the Dead Rabbit. It is really consistent throughout all the events you do, anywhere that you are representing the brand in itself. You guys do a great job.
I will say, you feel a little silly walking down the street, like, wait, not everybody knows what Dead Rabbit is, like outside of the industry. So walking down the street in, random city, whatever, is pretty funny.
More than Apple, though.
Well, let's talk about the fact that, like, there's certainly definitely a skill set you're looking for somebody when they hire into the company, but also you told me there are very specific skills you're looking for. If somebody's going to go out and be an extension of you, like, because you can't be everywhere, Jack can't be everywhere, Sean can't be everywhere, so you have to send, like, who are those people, like, how do they get the job? If somebody wanted the job at the Dead Rabbit, what are you looking for, and then how do they move their way up to be the representative?
When we're hiring people, obviously we have multi-levels, so, whether they're going to be a parlor bartender, they're probably going to be coming in with more experience technically and drink creation-wise, classic cocktail-wise, and whatnot, and hospitality. As far as the tap room, we're really looking for people, because of our education system and our requirements for you to move up on our learning management system and through our training programs, we're really looking for people that like have a great personality and want to work hard and show up on time and are loyal. So like that they're going to dedicate time for. I'm not going to invest. I call it like Greg and I would call it a 6-month bar. You're not actually going to find your rhythm until about 6 months. So that's 6 months of investment of training. For you to only stay, on for a year, that's crazy. That's a lot of money and it's a lot of time. And it's we've been doing this putting this together for 2 years now with the new education program. So we're really looking for investment. And after you get to that point,
like, what do you come to face?
The faith, it's more. Are you able to speak in front of people? Are you ambassador for the bar? Do you understand the DNA? Do you understand what Jack and Sean created? How much you respect that? Can you travel alone and be okay? Do I have to worry about you? But I think it's also about speaking and meeting bartenders and being active. There's some of our best bartenders aren't great public speakers. I'm not the best either, but I'm not totally out of my comfort zone doing it. So, and I can communicate with people and show people a good time and create drinks and put logistics together and deal with ingredients and problem solving on the, like, if you're in China and I'm in New York, do you need me to fix something for you, or can you figure, like, being a problem solver? So I think there's all these things that I'm like, all right, can I completely trust you, represent this brand, and be responsible and professional?
That makes sense. And what are the guidelines? Like, okay, so because if you have a brand, your bar, and you want to extend your bar out into the world, you have to have very specific, or any brand you have to have somebody there to give you guidelines and things, because you want to make sure they do the exact same thing, or they carry over the DNA of the brand. Like I met somebody today who runs a couple of bars yesterday and in Washington, D.C., and he was talking about, like, he has bartenders here, and he said, if we paid for you to come here, you're paying for your hotel, then you are a representative of our brand, and we give them very specific guidelines of how we expect them to conduct themselves under our umbrella, because people are going to associate them, and I don't want anyone coming back to me and saying, oh yeah, I met your bartender and he was all fucked up at the strip joint down the street. He's like, that's what I don't want. He's like, you came here on your own dime, have a great time. Go to the strip joint, get all fucked up. He's like, but when I paid for you, there's certain ways I want you to represent our brand, our company. So you also have very specific details, like about typeface and menus.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about one of the things that in your, say, 3-month or yearly, like, review would be ambassadorship, and that is you know, you're going to a cocktail bar in New York City and you're not bad-mouthing somebody else, or you're not talking about, oh, like, being disrespectful or being a jerk, being rude. You know, you're not, like, texting people for reservations and being, like, demanding and high maintenance, I guess you could say. Like, you are, like, you're empathetic and you're understanding, and you know how people can be as a host. So I think it's just being respectful, really, and doing the job that you're set out to do. And again, like, I've gone out with my friends this week and I had a great time, but you know, you make sure that you get what you need to get done, and that you represent the bar and you dress the part.
I was at a seminar yesterday on ethical entrepreneurship, and one person said that in their employee reviews, to make sure that people are living up to the brand of that business, actually the employee reviews, only 20% is actually based on performance, and the other 80% is split between 4 of their values as a business and how much they live up to those values. So they're actually reviewed on how much they are helping contribute to that brand and living and breathing that brand out in the workplace. And I thought that was really fucking cool, and made me think maybe something I want to do.
I think also, as a bar, giving people, like, the opportunities that we all obviously work really, really hard to be the best version of a bar that we can be, and the branding that we put in, the money we put in. But I think that our team truly, like, lives and breathes Dead Rabbit, and that they do take pride in being that wherever they are, and that we also reward them with getting to go to trips and, like, giving them opportunities that they might not other get. But hard work does pay off, and I think that helps with creating that culture that we have.
That makes sense. So people stay with you longer because they know they can get rewards, and they're going to be put out there in the world, and you're helping build their own platform, so they become famous on their own. Because you know they're not going to be there forever, but you want them to be part of your team for an extended amount of time because you invested in them.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's 6 months of training, and then the ongoing training, and the more and more and more. You know, it's getting the opportunities to do all these cool things, but it's and everybody that most of our most successful bartenders were with us for at least 3 years and have gone on to open up some amazing bars. Like, Harrison just opened up Crown Shy in New York. Like, that's huge. It was, like, the most anticipated opening in New York this year. You know, Madeline is now working with Jack Daniels. Like, it's really cool, and that for me is the most rewarding thing of being a bar manager.
Right. It's not being selfish of your staff, allowing them to kind of grow and be the thing. Because I've actually seen that. I've actually seen bartenders work at a bar, and the owner, if they go leave, they're really defensive about it. They're like, "How could you leave me? I dress it all this time." And they're like, everybody's got to go and grow and be their own person. So, being a bar owner, it's really important to help grow your staff so that one day maybe they will stay with you forever. But if they're going off to be another person, they're going to still continue your brand because they're going to remember what they learned from you. And we always say the schools of thought. Yep. Like, there's Audrey Saunders schools, Sasha Petrosky's school of thought. There's all these different schools of thought. So their memory, and not their memory, but their way of working is still passed on.
And, sorry. No, I mean, coming from one of those schools of thought, it is pretty incredible to see that, you have Flatiron, Pegu, and Milk and Honey, and Death Coat, PT, and then you have this whole branch of people, and then Dead Rabbit, it all trickles down. And another thing too, it's like if you are constantly putting only yourself out there, look at Sean and Jack opening this bar and winning all these awards, and then they brought me on. It took a while, but they gave me the platform.
Oh, they elevated you, they literally
so
your partner.
They're like, we just, we want to go running and we want to do all these other things, and no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We want to, they are more operators now, and that's kind of what Jack was doing. They elevated me to take over that role, and it was a kind of a hard transition because not everybody was like, what? They were kind of not accepting of it, but now it's more natural to work as a team. But it does take you to invest in people and to push people up.
Absolutely. So I wanted to give one more example of a world famous bar doing it really right. I know Sandrae I've met these guys and they're so much fun. But yeah, tell us why.
We love them. We love working with them. We love their passion again, energy, pride. They're from Greece, in Athens. Athens is in Athens. They're from Athens in Greece. But they promote not just their bar. They don't just promote the 4 bars that are under their umbrella. They promote Athens and they promote Greece. So actually, they're one of the few bars that I know that's actually won an award for their country from the Tourist Board for the amount of work that they do. But also what we love about them is that everybody in the 5-strong team, you can't really see them all here, but they all have a place and they all play an important part of that brand. So the 2 guys that are the bartenders, you can see them on the far left, or is that right? That's Nikos and Vasilis. So they're actually the face of the Clumsies. But the other people in the group, they all have a great role and they all respect each other's roles. And that's what makes this brand really, really unique. So the guy that you can see in the middle, he's the business mind. So he takes he's got the money, he travels the world, going to different bars, going to different restaurants, seeing what the trends are, and then he will take them back to the Clumsies, and they will interpret those in pop-ups, which you've done. They have a huge pop-up every year. One of the last ones was in May, and they brought over the best tiki bars in the world. So they had Smuggler's Cove, they had Antico Miami. Yeah, who else? Happiness. Yeah, all Trailer Happiness. And so all of these people that they bring together because of the reputation that they have, because of the belief that they have, and because they just want to show that Athenians a really, really good time, but they want people from around the world to come to Athens and experience Athens. So Leilos does that, he travels the world. One of the guys is a designer, so he is responsible for all of the interior design of the bars, but also of the menus, of the garnishes, things like
and
that.
Sandra, the thing that really interested me was how they help their staff enter competitions.
Yeah, so for
this
the
is
past,
a great example of how to help promote your staff. And
the
get them out
past 5 or 6 years, they have 4 bars in their umbrella, but they have one person that will be in every World Class or Bacardi Legacies, which are arguably the 2 biggest cocktail competitions around, will always be from their bars. And what they do, they work with them and they actually not groom in the right way, but make sure that they're ready with the presentations, they help them with the recipes. One of the guys was actually an actor, so he helps them with how to present themselves, what they're doing with the drinks, and it just works perfectly. So for me, it's one of my favourite brands, bar brands, apart from you guys, of course. But you know, they work so well, and everybody who works with them always will just speak so highly of them. They're fantastic.
So I thought it'd be interesting. No, it's great. That's one reason I talked about it, because as a bar owner, you really need to help promote your staff and build them up. And then also as a bartender, how you can use that platform in the right way. We're also going to talk about how to use it it can be used in the wrong way. But first I thought it'd be kind of cool. Michael's going to talk to us about some of the career paths you can gain by working at a great bar and where you can move on to. So.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we know in the bar world they're very clear, clicking through it'll do its thing. Very clear, linear career paths. You can be a bar back, you can be a bartender, you can go into being a bar manager, maybe one day a bar owner. It's very, in that sense, it's very linear and almost, like I said earlier, kind of transactional. I'm moving from this to this to this. But I think having this and building your platform and your personal brand can help you to translate your skills and your passions into other roles. So, do the next slide, and click through a couple more times all these whizzy animations. You know, there are very clear skills that I think are aligned with each one of these roles, and those skills would help you to translate over to analogous roles within the brand side of the business. But it's that personal brand that actually kind of is the bridge to help you get over. Of course, you need the skills of hard work, teamwork, and eagerness to learn, timeliness. Like, to be a great bar back, I think you might be great at events. If you're a great bartender, you might make a great ambassador because of those skills. If you're a bar manager, again, you've got the commercial aspect, and that might translate into a more commercial role for a spirits brand. And if you're a bar owner, again, you are already trained in being a leader, you are proficient commercially, and you might make a good brand owner. But to be able to cross over, it's having that purpose and that passion and that conviction in your personal brand that may help you to move from one side to the other. And again, there are plenty of other roles. This is a really high-level view of what might be two different career paths. But I think it's, if you want to be a vodka ambassador, you're a bartender, you should be talking about vodka and promoting vodka drinks as much as you possibly can, so that you can then make that switch to being a vodka ambassador, because people know you as a guy who's just really passionate, or a guy or a girl who's really passionate about vodka. And if you are teaching other people in the bar community about the commercial aspects of how you should run your bar, sharing your costing spreadsheets, sharing your P&Ls, and letting people know, I bet if I was looking for somebody who wanted to be in our sales team, I'd be like, fuck, they know their shit when it comes to the commercial aspects of how a bar should be run. And so it's using that personal brand that you create helps you to move from one side to the other. And not saying you have to go one direction. You could be going into the bar world if you wanted to. And again, it's that personal brand that helps you to do that.
No, absolutely. And if you are, is anybody here a bartender who wants to be a brand ambassador? Yeah, right? So, by the way, as I say I work with a lot of brands as a consultant, I'm always like, just because they were a great bartender does not mean they're a great brand ambassador. But also the opposite way around. It seems like a sexy job. It is, but it's not. It's not. In so many ways it's not. So before you want to make that leap, talk to other people who are brand ambassadors and find out what's the other side of the business. It's not all just buying drinks and hanging out and doing all that stuff. What's all the paperwork you have to do and all that stuff? And like, every brand is different. Some people have great brand ambassador programs. It's a seminar for another day, and some do not. So, but these are all things as somebody who's hired brand ambassadors and manages as a consultant for companies for the brand ambassador program, we do look at these skills. The one thing I do ask for potential brand ambassadors is, have you ever bought spirits before? Like, are you in charge of buying the spirits? Are you in charge of putting the beverage program? Because that means, as a brand ambassador, when you have to have that conversation with a bar owner, you understand what their doubts might be, what they're looking for, like, pricing or whatever, and how it fits into their bar program. So those are skill sets. And if you were really good at it and you built your personal brand in another bar, you're the person I'm gonna tell that company to hire. And be like, yeah, that person's a great brand ambassador because they bought spirits, they worked with sales reps, they understand costing, so they can have that conversation.
And it's very clear what they're passionate about.
Yes, very clear what they're passionate about. So some other roles we thought kind of interesting. Some of the big ones that are out there is now becoming an educator is a really big role within bars. Like Jillian mentioned a few times that they have an entire role just for the bar educator, right? Somebody who's Greg.
So yeah.
What was Greg before?
Sorry, I'm losing my voice too, and we're raspy. So yeah, Greg Buddha, for instance, is a great example of this, where he was working at a bar up in the Upper West Side for a long time, and it wasn't like a cocktail bar like a Death and Go or PDT or anything, but he just kind of kept annoying Jack via email until he finally got a job, and he worked at the Beagle. Remember the Beagle?
Mm-hmm.
So he got a job with the company and just moved his way up from like different bartender status, and he has a PhD in plant biology. So I actually call him Dr. Moss. He doesn't like that very much, so please tell him that when you see him. But no, he's just getting back from China from doing like whiskey and bar training for some people. But it's great. He's in charge. Like once we started to grow as a company, we always said we wanted to do like a heavy education program. So he's put together with Jack and a bunch of other staff and myself the learning management system. That's that online portal that we have. But it's taken 2 years to do, and he is basically our director of education. So for somebody who has got his PhD in something it has a good background for talking about spirits, it's just really cool how once he was kind of done bartending, because you can't do it forever, let's be honest. It's cool that there are now more opportunities for you to be educators. I mean, it's the next generation at this point. You have the Bar 5-Day and Bar Smarts and all these amazing things happening, kind of like the wine world had, and now where the spirits world is having. But we need the next generation of educators, and it's, if you're interested in it, there's opportunities for it, either within companies, hotels, or creating your own thing. I know a dream of mine is to open up a bartending school in New York with a lot of stuff. So it's just it's cool to think that these things are actually attainable.
No, they are. I mean, the picture I have up there is of the Liquor Lab, which is I'm the director of trade education there. They're one of my main clients, and it started off. That's Freddie Sarkis. He was a bartender at the Broken Shaker. He's a great guy. If you know him, he's amazing. And him and the other owner, Owen Myers, who's working the sales side of business, they decided to come up with this concept of creating this cocktail consumer experience. We have in Manhattan, we're down in Soho, we have about 45 cocktail stations. We hold consumer classes almost every day. We're sold out every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. We do tons of team building work. I found out that's a really great way people like to get fucked up and go in with their team. So it works really well. And then I came on because I was like, you don't have a trade element. So now we're building it up. We're doing education classes for distributor sales reps and for the brand ambassadors themselves, like teaching them how to sell, how to work with cocktails, because a lot of brand ambassadors weren't cocktail people beforehand. And then also bartender training within the school. But it's just another path, going from one place to the other. But because we built a personal reputation and a personal brand, brands want to work with us because they know me, they know Freddie, they know the owner. So it's like building that personal brand led to us getting lots of brands working with us in this completely outside project, because it's all liquid to lips, and they know that we're going to do the right thing for them to make sure their brand's well represented. So another role is obviously, we're not going to go into it, sorry, it is annoying, that whole thing. Is obviously the most obvious one. It's like being, a lot of people go into is a bar consultant. Going from being a bartender to being a bar manager to being a bar owner, but also maybe going out there in the world, extending your services, and being a bar consultant. That's a seminar all in, but it's just giving you nobody's gonna hire you as a bar consultant unless you have a great platform, and unless you've worked at a great bar and you have a name for yourself. they're going to trust you and they're going to say, okay, you obviously know what you're doing, but you need that personal brand to get to that point.
I think also with that, as a bartender, if you're looking to be a consultant, like keep some kind of portfolio of the drinks that you've created, what you've done, the menus you've done. You know, have some kind of like lookbook, if you will, or keep it consolidated. Like if I was ever to leave Dead Rabbit, which is probably never happening, but it's, you know, having everything I've done from like using like Evernote or something like that, keep everything organized, be able to show things. You never know what's going to happen. You never know how your life might change and you need a different job or you need a life change. Keep everything organized that you have, every accomplishment and every drink you've done, like together, so you can present that.
Yeah, I've got a portfolio of all of the speaking engagements I've done, all the recipes I've contributed to. Just not that I have any intention of leaving the business that I've found, but it is important to have that as a kind of in your
tool belt. You need some things you want to talk about, because running seminars is fucking pain in the ass. That's my husband. He's like, seriously, stop doing seminars. You like work every night, you're working every weekend, you're up to late at night doing research and things like that. And I'm like, I know, but I kind of like.
And the seminars don't pay, but they do build a personal brand.
Yeah, that's very true. So another platform is one I have personal experience with, is being a brand ambassador. And everyone knows Colin Affia from Bacardi, one of the most charming people out there in the world. He's a great brand ambassador, and now he's moved on to many other things within the company itself. But this is your platform. So as a brand ambassador, you know, you get to be known as a brand expert, a category expert. You should become an engaging presenter. That's part of your key skills of being a great brand ambassador. If you can be a mixologist, being a talented mixologist definitely helps. Global and national traveler. People expect to know you, like they see you traveling all around. They want to know where you've been, your experiences. A connector. That's one of your biggest things, because everybody starts calling you. They're like, so if I'm in Nashville, can you put me into the bar, that, you know, whatever it is. But it's a big role, because it leads you to other things. Build your network, because it does lead to other things happening. People trust that you're going to either send them the right person or have the right name for the right person that's going to get you into the bar you want to go to, or maybe hire them for other gigs. A person who has access, and a great host. As a brand ambassador, a lot of your job is being a host to other people. You know, you're bringing them out to bars, you're hosting bartenders and stuff like that. So this is part of your platform. So one of the things I always tell people, if you're a brand ambassador, always keep your own personal details. Have your own email. If everybody just knows your brand email, and then you leave that brand, they can't get a hold of you. I mean, they can find you on social media, but it's good to have your own setup, have your own Facebook page, have your own connection, so that when you eventually, because every job you have is a tool belt to getting you to the next better job. So always think of that. So you want to have your own connections. Always remember you're in public. Once you become a brand ambassador, you're always on. Always. Everybody's watching you, everybody's observing you, and people will have no problem letting somebody know that, yeah, did you see that brand ambassador? They were all fucked up. And next thing you know, your boss knows, and there's your job. So you're always on. So you want to make sure that you always have a good face on. And one of the things I put, the brand is you. Now, that might sound strange, right? I work for a brand. Shouldn't it be all about the brand? Of course, it is about the brand. We're going to talk about how do you do it the right way. But as I said, you're trying to build your own personal brand. The brand you're working on right now is just that. You don't own it. It's just the brand you're working on. So you do the right thing by your brand, you represent your brand in the right way, but you do things that build your personal brand so they know you outside of that brand and who you are as a person. So that's a key thing to always remember. The brand is you. The job is the job, right? So what can you do to build your personal brand? I'm a brand ambassador. I have, my company has given me expectations of what they expect of me. What can I do to build my own personal brand? Because they're not going to ask you to do any of these things. They're not going to ask you to guest bartend, right? You have to do that on your own. If you want to build your personal brand, you want bartenders to know you and other people to know you, you have to do that on your own. You have to go out there and ask people and say, hey, can I work behind your bar? So you start building a reputation. Speak at trade shows. seminar I've ever given entails. I worked for Diageo for 17 years. I was their head mixologist for, I think, 12. I exaggerate time a lot, but definitely was 17. They never once said to me, Elayne, go do a seminar. Ever. Never asked me to do a seminar. I did every seminar because I knew it was good for me. But I always brought my brands in. So I always did the right thing by my brand. So whenever I spoke at the seminar, I make sure my brands were interwoven within the seminar. But the brand was about, I wanted to do a seminar and build my reputation out there. Talk to the media. Now this is something I didn't know, and Sandrae brought it up yesterday when we were talking about this.
Yeah, we're always looking for stories. So as a brand ambassador, as bartender, anybody actually, if you've got a story to tell, do share it with the media. You might not think that we'll be interested, but we are, not all the time. And we will save it for times when we can use those stories. But it is important to communicate what you've got going on because we don't know otherwise. So do share your knowledge with us and we'll spread it out there. Particularly, I would say, even more so with trade publications because, and if they're online, they need news stories every day. Some of them post about 5 stories a day, so they are waiting for those things. So please make friends with the media, drop them emails. I wouldn't call, that doesn't always go down so well, but make sure that you do engage.
And when you do, just one thing to keep in mind, because if you work for a very large company, they might not be too happy that you talk to the media on your own. So you have to make sure you at least have clearance. And it might be a story just about yourself, and you're just working at that job. So don't do it as, I'm the Sandrae, this is just what I'm doing at the moment. So, and making sure that you get a proper media training by your team. I always tell people, ask for things you need, because you're gonna talk to the media, you need a media training.
But also, if you are doing that, make sure you deliver. Because if you say that you're going to give us a story, or we ask you to follow up on that, and you don't get the information in on time, it's a no-no, and people won't use you again. So always make sure you deliver on time.
So, and also, the one thing I learned the hard way is continue your education outside your role. So before I became a brand ambassador, I worked on the marketing side. I launched Ciroc Vodka and Bullet Bourbon and Don Julio. I worked on the event side and the strategy and the marketing. When I became a brand ambassador, the mixologist for Diageo, it was 2005. They didn't know what a mixologist was. Most people did. It didn't have a title. It didn't exist. It was a very strange transition in my career, but I saw Steve Olson speak. We hired him to do an education, and I was like, I wanted to be that guy, right? And I was like, I went to my boss, and I told my boss what I wanted to do, because you have to get these, meetings. They sit you down. They say, what do you want to do for the next 5 years? And I would say, I want to be Steve Olson, and I want to be the educator and the mixologist. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't know what that is, so no. And then my next boss came along, and it was like 6 months later, and I told him that, and they were like, no. And then 6 months later, I told the next guy, and he said, fuck yeah, you should totally do that. What do you need, right? But I became the mixologist for 12 years, and within that, I did TV, I did lots of glamorous things, but I also fell behind in my skill sets on his marketing and strategy, and knowing that's what I want to do eventually in the future. That's why it's important to have a goal, because that way you can identify what education you need to maintain. Because when I got that role at Anheuser-Busch as a global manager, which was a great role, I was fucked. It was so outside of my wheelhouse because it had been years. I had to do a lot of catch-up work. So maintain, just keep doing. There's a great website called Skillshare. I highly recommend. It literally has experts in it that are constantly teaching seminars about things. You have to pay the subscription. I think it's like $150 for the year. But you get lots of websites. If you want to learn about social media, there are so many educators on social media about that. But there are a lot of other things. There's marketing, the branding, there's lots of things on there. It's fantastic. So also, we're going to talk about utilizing social media to promote yourself and your brand. Have your platform. Find a mentor, somebody that you believe in, who has a job you want to pick their brain. Be generous with your knowledge. So if you know things and you know other people can benefit from them, don't keep it to yourself. Put it out there in the world. It's okay. There are lots of jobs for lots of people, so don't feel like it has to be mine. And ask for what you need. If you work for a brand, a lot of brands don't give their brand ambassadors what they need. So if you're working for a brand, ask for it. I had to beg to get headshots done. I was on fucking TV. I mean, seriously, I was on a big text rate, and they wouldn't give me headshots. I was like, literally had to sneak my way into another photo shoot to get them. So you have to ask for what you need. So ask for what you need, because they're not going to give it to you. And find out from other brand ambassadors, like, how can I do this job better so I can get and ask my boss for the right information, right? So those are some just...
Yeah, if anybody saw my headshot from earlier, you'll see that I definitely have not asked for professional headshots.
Yes. And I wanted to just talk, I know I want to make sure we get to everything. I know there's a few things, because we have Camille Vidal up here, because she's an amazing brand ambassador. Well, she was, and now she has her own platform, but she used this role to kind of build her
brand. She worked really well for Sandra Learns, so she became Madame Sandra Learns. So beautiful French lady, always had flowers. She was the quintessential Sandra Learns brand ambassador, and actually did an amazing job at that. But all the while that she was doing that, she was working on her own brand. So everybody knew Camille. Everyone knew her as Sandra Learns, but we knew her as her. Now, over the past few years, she's gone on to, she first started doing yoga and doing all this wellness thing. Now she has her own business called Maison Wellness, but she's done her job so well that she still works for Sandra Learns. They commission her to do work for them. So that's a clever way of building your brand within the brand. And when you leave the brand still want you. So she's done it really well.
And she really owned that French persona, and really was so consistent in that Frenchness.
Yeah.
But then when she found a passion for wellness and well-being, mental well-being, and yoga, physical well-being, she started incorporating that into her role as an ambassador, which she could then take back out of the role. So it was, as you say, the job was the job. She had her passion, which she used those skills to bring into that role and be a better ambassador, but was able to still have that part of her that was, I'm also just a person who's focused on wellness, and that is part of my personal brand. So when I take it back, I'm no longer the brand, but I'm still the wellness person. And she was able to very clearly differentiate those two in her role.
No, that's a big thing. Being able to incorporate your own personal, like what you know your future goal is. That's why it's good to have a goal. She had a goal, obviously, that this was something she wanted to do. So she managed to incorporate it, but still keep the brand front and center. So the brand never was angry that she was doing these other things. They were like, oh, she's incorporating our brand, it's her own thing. So she's representing us, but she's also representing ourselves in the right way.
The brand was the platform for the passion.
Yes.
And now the passion is now the platform for what she's going to be doing next.
Exactly. All right, so I put this in there because I think everybody recognizes this picture from The Hangover, some personal mistakes, because I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of share like some personal stories of some things that we've done wrong. So some of us have very short stories, so I'll kick off with mine. One of the things I learned was, if you're a brand ambassador, you're representing a brand, you don't always have to incorporate the brand into everything you do. If they didn't ask you and you're doing a personal gig, don't do it. And my example of this is, I got asked by Gourmet Magazine, they were relaunching their online magazine, and they hired me to do the cocktails, to put on this magazine and be part of like the cocktail story. Great, it was great money, they wanted to hire me for future things, big contract. So I, trying to be the loyal brand ambassador that I was, made sure that every cocktail had a brand name in it. So I put Don Julio in there, and I put Ciroc in there, and Tanqueray 10 in there, and I was like, yes. Now, this was an outside gig, and it had nothing to do with my brand ambassador role. I was being paid separately out of my own company, and they knew I did things outside. I didn't really talk about it a lot, but they knew. And it backfired, because the New York Times calls me up on the phone and says, oh, we found it really interesting that all the brands at Gourmet Magazine have a brand tied to it. Is Diageo a sponsor? And I was like, no, I work for the brands, and this is what I do, and all these, the profile of these brands work with these specific ingredients, and I was given the option of not writing a brand, but this is what I do. They spun that story into Diageo sneaks free advertising into Gourmet Magazine. I got my ass handed to me. A, I lost the Gourmet because the person who hired me got their ass handed to me for allowing that to happen. And B, Diageo fired me because they were like, what the fuck? Because they were selling me in the New York Times. and they had no idea what I was doing. All I was doing was trying to be a good brand ambassador. I was incorporating my brand into something I was doing in outside projects. So what I learned from that was, if you're doing outside work of your job and it's not something, don't bring brands. If you didn't ask them very specifically, don't ever do that, because it can really backfire on you. Sandra, I know you had one very poignant point. It was very specific.
It's just funny. We, in our enthusiasm, I guess, to launch our first print magazine, I'll just say sometimes just manage your own expectations, but we decided to print 50,000 magazines, have them delivered to our home, lug them up 3 flights of stairs, and actually try to deliver and distribute all of those magazines. So that's one mistake that will always stay with me. We sort of overestimated our own success, I guess.
Jillian, you had a very specific story.
I have so many. One, I think, is Sandrae's here. We've been friends now for about five years, but...
Wait, I'm going to interrupt. By the way, you're drinking a gin and tonic, by the way. I'm not gin and tonic, a gin martini.
I was like...
A gin and martini.
Gin and tonic is incredible. I hate tonic.
This is a gin martini, sorry. It's Sandrae and I were talking about, like, what's your favorite drink? And for me, when I'm out and about, like, I always drink. And as much as I don't want to promote brands that I work for, I'd still Tanqueray. And it's my favorite martini. I know I shouldn't say that, right? I just made a mistake again. I'm promoting a brand and didn't ask me to do it. But it's a fantastic. So yeah, cheers everybody.
Cheers, guys.
It's a little dry martini.
Great job being here at 10:30 on Saturday.
The graveyard shift of seminars.
Yeah, I know. But when I saw Saturday morning, the earliest one, I was like, oh boy. Yeah, mistake one. I think, well, what I was saying is...
and keep in mind we have 15 minutes. So keep it short.
And keep it short, okay.
Yeah.
I won't give them all, then we'll be here for weeks. We were doing London Cocktail Week last year, and I think the moral of the story before is that you can never give enough information to people, even if you think you're kind of being very elementary about it, because I showed up Virgin Airlines last year, flew out like a bunch of bars to go over to London Cocktail Week, and it was kind of like a 24-hour launch of aviation gin and Virgin Airlines, which we helped connect the dots with that. And so this is like important to us. They had 3 bar teams that I organized, and everything was great. Got there, some of it was a disaster, some of it wasn't. Most of it was their fault, but to be honest, but it was, but you know, they like, oh, we're going to do this cocktail competition, and you know, it was Gary and Sandrae and somebody else. Yeah, and then Drink Up magazine. And I just didn't, I didn't give them enough information. Even though like they probably should have said, hey, you need to show up at this time and request this ice or this glassware. You know, I was like, oh, this is just a nonchalant thing. You know, even if it was a very casual thing, it wasn't like a huge deal, that I'm representing my brand didn't do the best that I could do, even in a very small thing. Because a small thing that you do very wrong in front of the right people can be detrimental. So, I mean, I know you know me, but at the same time, I walked away and I was like, didn't think this was a big deal. But after I walked away, I was like, I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good that even though it was like, you know, a 10-minute spiel of doing a cocktail, that I could have done better. And
So always be prepared. Even if it's big or small, always be prepared. Like we talk about showing up, always be prepared, big or small. Everything's a big deal, especially when you're a big brand. So yeah.
You understand. It's all about being the best at everything. I mean,
right, I walked away feeling really crappy because I was like, I'm better than this. Like, my drink might have tasted well, but it was disorganized, and I could have maybe helped with that situation, and I didn't feel good about it, and it sucks to feel like that.
Yeah. Right, did you have anything? No, we're good. All right, very good.
And he's perfect.
He's perfect, exactly. So we just also wanted to talk a little bit about social media. This is not a social media seminar, but it's basically just some rules, like if you're out there in the world, rule number one, I think we can all agree upon, don't post while intoxicated, right? That's just a rule if you're building your personal brand. And also, if you are intoxicated and you post, don't tag your brand. I had this conversation with somebody recently. I was talking to a brand, somebody who manages brand ambassadors. She's like, we just had to fire somebody recently because not only were they drunk in the photo, they took the time to tag the brand in the photo. Like, why would you do that? Like, just because you were intoxicated. Check your spelling, especially your brand name. Make sure it's spelled correctly. Don't take photos in competitive events. I know that sounds silly, but if you represent any other brand, just don't. You don't need to post that photo. Just, you don't need that conversation the next day when your brand manager is like, hey, why were you at they don't mind you're at the event, just don't talk about it. Don't friend your employers. If you don't need to, like on your Facebook or in your social media, don't put your bosses on there. They don't need to know what you're doing on your off hours, right? That's when you get into trouble. Just don't do it. Right? It's just silly, right? And think 10 years ahead, right? Think 10 years ahead of like what people are going to judge you on. Because now when you go for a job, and I say this to my daughter, who's 14, think about in 10 years or in 4 years when she's going to applying for college, they're going to be looking at your social media. What did you put on there? What did you say? So think about that. Put it on your story. It disappears. Whatever it may be, but think about that. Think 10 years ahead of what you want people to think of you, because they will judge you.
Yeah, I mean, love it or hate it, like Jillian here. Social media is a part of our lives now, and I think just taking, an hour to start looking up social media tips and best practices, and being consistent about doing those can be really, really useful.
Really, really helpful. All right, so, go backwards. Wait, to go backwards. Sorry, I'm going backwards. There we go. All right. I went backwards.
Yep, you're going backwards.
I am going backwards now. Sorry, I shouldn't have had this martini. All right. Last words of wisdom. So this is the right way of posting. So this is just an example. This is from Simon Ford. He's the owner of Ford's Gin, right? So posting is not boasting. Whoever, raise your hand if you're ever worried that you're bragging. Like you did something really cool, right? I all the time. I have that thing, I want to share, so I undershare sometimes, some great cool things. So one of the rules I've learned is if you don't, 3 things to make it look like you're not boasting and bragging is talk about the brand. So whether it's the bar or the brand you're working on, not yourself. So this great thing happened to my brand. Even if you work for a brand, this great thing happened to us. I also find, obviously being humble, sometimes it's like thanking other people. Always thank people. Put it out there. Something great happened to you, like you got a great trip or you went whatever, or else it's like your own personal trip. Then you can just be like, oh, all right, whatever, I'm in this amazing place. But I find that's really helpful. It's like talking about the brand that you're working on, thank other people and be a little humble, just be in gratitude and grateful for what you received.
Yeah, I mean, Maverick Drinks, when we started, we were saying, we work with craft brands, but it's not, we're not going to say, fuck the big brands, it's all about these brands. It was actually, with all the respect to the way they do things, we're just going to do things our own way. And that was the kind of genesis behind it being Maverick as a business. We're in a community-based business. Don't disparage other brands.
It's okay to say you did great things. It's just how you say it. And God, don't do the freaking long post. That's the worst.
I think also every post that you do can't be it can't be like that. Do you know what I mean? If every post that you put out is thank you and you put something edgy out there, put something fun out there, put something it's a balance because there are people who are thank you, and that's great.
And that's annoying too.
But something mute.
Yeah, I definitely use my personal Facebook to promote work things, but I also make sure that there's a balance of real life as well.
Yes.
So that people aren't just thinking that I'm only using it as my business platform.
I'm going back. So here's also people doing some cool shit and doing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone who, Tim Etherington Judge was the global ambassador for Bullet. He used that platform and that network to find something he was really passionate about, which was helping people in the hospitality industry be more healthy and mindful, both physically and mentally. And so he's launched Healthy Hospo. He used that platform to take his personal brand and create a career out of that. And his tip was just start. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because nobody knows what they're doing at the start, and too many people wait too long that they miss their opportunity. It's okay to fail and fail fast. Just keep trying and keep being consistent, keep pushing that message out and doing things, and actually, eventually, it may actually catch on and be a movement. Similarly, this is Ian Griffiths and Kelsey Ramage. They have worked in bars all over the world. Ian most recently with the Mr. Lion group, so Dandelion, White Lion, and Kelsey is also, she worked in Dandelion for a while as well, but also back in Canada. They both together were super passionate about sustainability, and it started in their bar world, talking about how they go out and teach people about the practices that they do in their own bar to reduce waste, to save on the ice that they use. I mean, every aspect, kind of closed loop system of their bar. And in turn, turn that into a career of consulting to some of the largest drinks companies in the world to help them be better about sustainability. And they said, you only sleep right at night when you do things right by yourself. That could mean a million different things, but for them, they were always honest. Going to a bar, they wouldn't feel bad about walking into, probably not the Dead Rabbit, but any other bar that they might go into and say, hey, I see you there, you've thrown away 2 perfectly good limes. Like, that's a shitty practice. Like, you can be better than that. And they could have been really polite and just said, oh, these drinks are great. Oh, thank you so much. This is a wonderful drink. Yeah, the hospitality's been fantastic. But they didn't. They just were honest to people. And I think they made some friends and made some enemies, but the friends that they made really rallied behind their cause, and they built a community around people who also understood that sustainability is important and helped them push that message.
I mean, it's definitely, I think, I respect them a lot for that. I don't know Ian and Kelsey all that well, but we've had a couple of encounters, but it really has pushed the movement, and now we actually have 2 people on our staff that I basically said, you're passionate about this, you go with it. And it's because of them, like, exposing that we've really been like, shit, we need to really make sure that we're good. I mean, I think you should be doing it anyways, but it was them that really made the voice in the industry to do so.
And the last one is just, at Maverick Drinks, we've always said that always build community. That's one of our core values. When you're going out there, it is, you need to realize that you have a place in this community and that you need to add value to it, and always be building positive relationships and thinking about what do you want that impact on the community to be long term. So we really drill this into our own team, and that's just, I mean, that is some of our team at 5 in the morning after one of our after parties we do in October, and still 20 people from our team all there, still coming together and cleaning up, and it was really great to see. So when I was thinking about your personal brand and how do you take that platform to translate it into an actual role or a movement you want to help create, if you said, I want to focus on sustainability, it's too big, it's too broad. You need to find the thing that you can personally influence and that you're passionate about. So maybe it's using fewer plastic cups at Tales of the Cocktail. Maybe that's what you want to be your cause. And that is something that you personally can impact. I mean, if you try and say, well, I'm going to try and get rid of the world's plastic cups, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. Start with things that you can directly impact, set goals, make plans of how you can do that, find other people who also give a shit about the same thing, and collaborate and bring them together. That, in turn, builds a community around your cause. And then, like Tim said in his quote, just start doing, start acting. Even if it doesn't work, you keep trying, you keep pushing the message so that you can create the impact you want to see in the world. And I think that for me is, in very short 7 bullet points, taking that personal brand that you created and using your platform to actually make an impact.
Thanks, Mike. So the other thing we all talked about, we all agreed here, was be selective. be selective about the gigs you do. You know, a lot of times you're just like, oh, that'd be really good money, I'll take that gig. But it can really crush you and what your brand, because people start to associate you with that brand. You're like, wow, really? He is supporting that brand? So if you ever, I'm going to do this one quickly or else we have points. I was going to say, if you ever get hired for a brand, somebody puts something forward to you that is not really a brand or something you really support, but you know, you're like, wow, I could really use that $5,000. Just don't have them use your name. Protect your name, you know, put it on, I mean, so it's like you can do things for brands that maybe they're not like what you would carry at your bar, but don't have your name associated with it. Protect your name at all costs. So I put it in all my contracts. You know, you cannot promote Elayne Duff, you cannot use my name. I give them like 3 different quotes, like the white label, my name, and if they're gonna use my name, they're gonna pay a fuckload of money. Right? That's pretty much, that's the only way I'm gonna sell myself. But for the most part, I pretty much never do. But I think we all agree on that one. Yeah. So Michael already talked about it. Figure out what your end goal is. Figure out what skills you need to get there. So if you have an end goal and you're like, oh, I need these skills, don't stress out. You can get there. It might be 2 years from now, but like, what are the steps you're gonna put into place? What are the things you need to learn? And just learn them. You know, eventually you'll get there. It's okay if your goal doesn't happen for a few years. As long as you're making steps towards that goal, it's totally fine. And then just go and do it. You know, once you start getting there, you're gonna fail. It's fine. But once you start doing it, it's amazing how much faster you learn. And I always put this up there. It's something I say all the time. Like I curse a lot, but fuck what people think. And I put that at Seminar Event because if you can believe it, when I did Bar Rescue and I did the first couple of seasons, the industry looked down on me on that. My husband made fun of me, people in the industry made fun of me. They were like, I can't believe you're on that show, it's so tacky. So I actually did less shows because I was worried. I didn't really talk about it, promote it. And then I realized as I got older, and I was like, fuck that. It's the reason why people pay me more. Literally, because I was on that show. It's the reason why when sales representatives brought bartenders to my bar at the Diageo bar, bartenders lined up and anything I said, they were like, if Elayne Duff says it, must be true. So we must do it. And it was only because I was on that stupid show, right? So don't worry as much about what the industry's gonna think of you. If you think it's the right thing for your career and it's gonna help build you and put you out into the world, then go for it. Right? Don't be so worried about it and when people are gonna take you down on social media. Fuck them. Do it right, but do it well. All right?
I knew you looked familiar. I was plays you. This whole time I think, you know, I've seen her somewhere.
And you wanna know, he is a tool. Like,
I was told I wasn't allowed to do it. My boss was like, nope, you can't do that. Absolutely
yeah,
not.
there was a lot of bar owners that wouldn't let their bartenders on the show.
I was at Death and Co. They're like, Jilly, we love you. We let you do whatever you want to do for the most part, but we have to say this is probably not a good idea for your look.
And it probably wasn't.
It's different.
It was different because I didn't have a platform. My platform was Diageo, and it was okay, but most people don't really know Diageo, and it wasn't really like the cool company. Being on TV built my platform. Like being at Diageo was a good platform, gave me an amazing career, and I'm so thankful for them for that. But doing that show, and they put me on it, is what made people get to know me in other parts of the world. It's the only place, and only because of that show, Israel, I'm really famous. Like, my husband in any other country is the most famous man in the room, but Israel, I'm a god. Alright. Oh, this is the last part. This is the last part.
Well, and this is kind of the main...
we want to end on a positive note.
Yeah, the main point for me was that, you know, you build your personal brand so that you can then parlay that into a career and something that you're passionate about. And I think that the best way to make an impact on this industry is in creating your own path. You can climb that ladder and you can move one rung to the next over 10 years, 20 years. But really, when you think about long term and the impact that you want to make on this industry and this community, I think the people you see that have made the biggest impact are those examples I gave before, people like Camille, people who have used their platform, used their brand, and then used that to make a real positive impact. And I think ultimately that's hopefully what we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, don't be a tool. Be nice, be kind, be generous. Don't rip people apart because they're doing something different or they have different opinions than you. Be a good person. At the end of the day, I think that's pretty much a general rule. It's like all of us have careers, we've done what we've done, and then create your path. Find the thing that works for you and that's gonna have meaning and it's gonna make you a happy life. That's all I can think about as a personal brand. That's it. Goal in life. I think we have like 0 seconds for questions.
Minus 1 minute for questions.
Well, we have minus 1 minute for questions. So if we have like 2 questions, I think we probably can take. They're not kicking us out. I haven't seen the sign. Anybody have a question?
You talked about exchanging your personal information so people can contact you if you ever leave the company or brand you're working for. What's the appropriate way to go about that when you're still representing the brand you're working for? You still want to promote that, but you also want to promote yourself as well.
You put onto a slide as the last slide.
Yeah.
The question was, how do you go about exchanging your personal information and at the same time having the brand you may be working with? I tend to separate the two between social media is more personal and my emails are more work, but I think everybody has to draw the lines for themselves. Some people only use their personal details when they're publicly, depending on if they're speaking on behalf of the brand or not. But I've kind of, they pried the Maverick Drinks Instagram away from me. They told me that I'm no longer allowed to use that. I needed to spin out and use my own.
I always have it in my signature. I always have I always had my like work and then my personal email and my signature all the time. I also always had like a personal account on my social media just to have myself out there in the world. Like I have 2 Instagram accounts when I worked for a company, like 2 Facebooks. So I don't mean as much for Facebook, but yeah, I always put it in there. And it was more just building that. So like if you have a company phone and that's the number, if you can't find out, if I leave this job, can I take this phone with me and this phone number? Because you can't, that's fucked. So you need to have your own. You need to keep 2 phones sometimes, or at least 2 phone numbers. But 2 phones. When I worked for Anheuser-Busch, I had 2 phones because I never wanted to be, like, I knew I was never going to stay there forever. So I had 2 phones. Oh.
Elayne, this is just elaborating on what you said about like having 2 different Instagram accounts. This is something that I'm personally struggling with at the moment. So I have my personal one, I manage some bars accounts, I manage my magazine's accounts. How do you like, I know it's probably a really difficult question. A, how do you find the time? B, how do you decide what goes on your personal one? Because my life is drinks and, you know, cocktails and bars and stuff like that. But I also like to put a bit of like friends and family stuff up there. But it's hard because I feel like a lot of people are saying, oh, you should open up your Instagram account. I don't want to because I don't want randoms seeing my life, but I let people from the industry see it. So how do you, I guess my question
I think
is,
you need to find it like on your Instagram, and your personal one. I mean, like my own personal advice would be like, if that's your image, like who you are, then you can put drinks up there. But if your bar is your bar, it's just about the bar. So you have to decide, like create like almost like a curriculum, like an outline, almost like these are the things that are always going to go on my bar, and that's all I take pictures of. And these are always the things that go into my personal, and that's it. And don't vary off of that. That's just it. You just know it's like a very clear path, and make sure it's okay with your bar. But it's also your own stuff. Like this is what I'm going to do, and that's it. So you always know when I take a picture, oh, this goes in this bucket. This goes in that bucket.
I didn't for a long time have a personal Instagram account because I did everything from the Cocktail Lovers, but I think it was just a few months ago actually that I started my own one, and there is a lot of drinks on there because obviously that's my life now, but then I've included more of me, I guess, in my personal one. So it's a really tricky balance because you're giving yourself over to it, but you don't want to make it all about drinks. But I don't know, just give a little bit more of yourself, not that much, but you make it relevant to the people that you're talking to or who engage with you, I guess. But it is tricky. It is tricky.
And you can use the business one as the platform to also promote yourself. So you'll occasionally see on the Maverick Drinks Instagram it says, our co-founder, Michael Vachon, is going to, I also wrote that, but I did it from the business side, and I try, as you say, incorporate a little more of my personal life into my personal one.
Yeah. my personal travels, like my daughter's on my personal one, like, you know, those are things that I share where I might not share it more. Like, I have another one called like must have drinks in New York City, and that's just about where I drink and like what I'm drinking and the bars that and what cocktail I'm drinking at that moment. So it's just, that's all I post on that account. It's just like the drinks I had, the recipes that were in them, and where I was, so that people can follow me and see the cool bars in New York City or whatever country I happen to be in. But then I have Duff on the Rocks, Elayne Duff, and that's a little of my personal, just a little of my business. So I kind of I try to come up with clear lines.
But even on my personal Instagram, I don't follow many of my work colleagues. If I'm following you in terms of, and you're also a person in the drinks industry, it's because you are a person in the drinks industry who is also a friend. And so I've tried to, I got to carve out that line for myself, and everybody will have it somewhere on that spectrum. But
not putting your work people on your personal.
That,
no, it's a big. I definitely.
They can follow me, but I'm probably not as many. Not many of my people I follow are my work colleagues on my personal Instagram.
Right. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but I find if you just have clear lines, just follow it and just be like, okay, this is what I'm always going to do in this is what I'm always going to do in that, and kind of go from there. Cool. Are we kicked out yet? I think so. I think we have to wrap it up. So if anything, we'll go out there. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm so impressed at 10:30 in the morning.
And thank you to the Caps as well for.
Oh yeah, thank you Tails and the cocktail. Because Tails put this seminar on. It was unsponsored. So thank you Tails and the Caps for doing this seminar. So thank you everybody. Have a great rest of Tails.